The big boy 15-inch MacBook Air is finally here, and I would not be surprised if this ends up being Apple's best-selling laptop because people have wanted this thing forever. Like, for years now, the only way to get a big screen on an Apple computer is to get the Pro devices. You gotta pay Pro money to get the Pro MacBooks. And it's frustrating, right? Like, for a lot of people, my wife, my mom, they were basically conned into buying those Pro devices just because they wanted the bigger screen. They had no use of like the extra capabilities of the Pro machines. They just want big screens. So many people are like that. Maybe it was done with intent. Maybe Apple was doing that to game the system or something, but it doesn't matter anymore. We got ourselves 15-inch Airs. Okay, so this 15-inch Air has a lot of similarities to the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's got the same great keyboard, it's got the same spacing between the keys and the same size of the keyboard well, and we have the same 4 colors. My 15-inch unit is in the Starlight color. It's this like somewhat goldish color. It's more of like a metallic cream color, not so much gold. And then, well, this is the midnight color, but it still has the Damascus skin from D-Brand. But it's like this dark blue, almost black color. But yeah, the same 4 color options, but performance is also strangely identical between the two. Now, I thought that the 15-inch device with its bigger chassis and just more surface area would have slightly better thermal performance. Like it just, I don't know, I thought it'd be able to radiate the heat off a little bit better, but it has the same thermal limitations as the 13-inch device, which is to say that it's an awesome performer for the vast majority of workflows out there, but if you're pushing it super hard for an extended period of time, like you're pushing with video edits or certain development projects that are massive, then it can slow down. But it's still very usable even in those circumstances. They have the same port configurations, the same headphone jacks, the same kind of color-matched MagSafe cables. The 15-inch device is a little bit thicker on paper, but it's almost imperceptible even when they're side by side. But let's talk about some real differences. So when you open them up, the big difference you see is the screen. So when you look at just like the paper specs, you're like, okay, it's a couple inches bigger diagonally. It can't be that big of a deal, right? But when you measure it, it's very significant. The 15-inch is like 26% bigger than the 13-inch in terms of just total real estate. And when you're using the screen, you're like splitting things or just viewing things, 25% surface area is a lot when it comes to a screen. So if you care about big screens, this is the move, man, the 15-inch. Now, in terms of the resolution, the 15-inch has higher resolution, but the pixel density is very similar. If you compare these screens, though, to the Pro models, these are not backlit with mini LEDs. They're also not running 120Hz ProMotion. They also don't get as bright at the top end as the displays on the MacBook Pros, but these are both still really awesome screens. Now, another difference between the 13 and the 15-inch model is the speaker system. So MacBooks in general have what I would argue to be the best speaker systems on laptops, regardless of the brand. I've done a video on this, but the 15-inch MacBook Air has a strangely good speaker system. It's because, like, the reason why I find it so bizarre is because it's so thin. Like the 14 and 16-inch devices, they have great speaker systems, but they're a little bit thicker. So there's more room in there. You can have just drivers stacked a certain way. You can do stuff in a thicker device to just amp up the audio quality. This is extraordinarily thin, and yet it has a speaker system that is on par with the 14 and 16-inch devices. It's crazy. I really don't know how they do it. Now, in terms of the trackpads, the one on the 15-inch model is a little bit bigger than the one on the 13-inch model, but it's just meant to kind of keep the size and proportion of everything proper. Battery life is very similar between the two. I ran a couple tests. The 15-inch MacBook Air was falling just a little bit short compared to the 13-inch, but I just chalked that up as an insignificant difference. Now, in terms of the pricing, the 15-inch model comes in kind of where I expected it to be. It's a $1,300 device at the base. Now, this base unit has a full-fat M2 chip. The base model 13-inch device has kind of a binned down like GPU that's been detuned chip. And once you kind of match them so that they both have 10-core GPUs, this is only $100 more than the 13-inch model, which is, I'd say, is a fair price to pay for all the benefits that you get of going with the bigger model. So in terms of just like the base price, I think it's fair, but in Apple fashion, the RAM upgrades and the storage upgrades are just painfully expensive. It's an extra $200 for more RAM and another $200 for more storage. Now, I have some thoughts on this. If you're choosing between the two, if you're like in that situation where you can only get one upgrade, I'd go for RAM every time. Like unless you have like very clear storage needs, I would always go for more RAM. Like you can always upgrade storage through external devices and stuff down the line. The RAM, you're stuck with forever. So I lean on RAM. Now there is this whole thing about like the base model storage, like the 256 gig models being slower, and they are, but unless you're editing massive video files on this tiny drive for whatever reason, and you've used up all your RAM using Chrome, like it's a non-issue, really. So for the people that are just using these devices for regular computing, and you're just good with the storage size of 256 gigs, the slower speed is truly irrelevant. Okay, so that's basically the conversation I wanted to have. The one thing that is kind of hard to portray in a video like this is the real size of it. Like, this is something you need to go to a store, because the footprint of the 15-inch is quite a bit bigger than the 13-inch. And if you have it like in a backpack, or you have like a messenger bag that's smaller, it's like, you can see in the overhead shot here, it's a lot smaller, right? So if you want a device that's really compact and really portable, the 13-inch device is still the way to go. Okay, there you have it. That's the big boy 15-inch MacBook Air.